Going old school to Peter Lynch, beating the street. When I buy a company, like when I was a kid, and I bought Nike stock with a little bit of money that I had saved, it was because I loved the product. I bought everything Nike, so I bought some shares of stock. And yeah, they did well. The same thing with Google. And when I got into Apple, the same thing. They've been very lucrative investments. And there was once upon a time that I wanted to invest in Airbnb. Why? Because I was traveling around the world and I was using it continuously, not only to travel in order to book rooms in people's houses far cheaper than any hotel in the area, so that I would be able to garner a local's perspective as to where to go, what to do in the new areas that I was in, and save a ton of money, which extended my travel period that I could venture forth, so to speak. But I also hosted while I was traveling. I also had people letting people into my house, and I loved doing it, even though sometimes it was a pain, because it brought me some income, which enabled my travels to go for up to a year if I wanted them. Because I had some money saved, and I would just take that money and just employ it towards my food and lodgings. And it was fantastic. And when I got back to LA, they were holding a contest as to who would prefer the most hosts. And I actually won that contest despite having a month disadvantage because I was so passionate about the company. So I was absolutely dying to buy the stock. But when it came out to the market, I did not purchase. And it was a little bit high. And then my feelings towards the company have changed. So the question is, do you short the stock? And I'm going to tell you why my opinion about the company has changed first. And then I'm going to discuss whether or not to short Airbnb. The reasons that they've changed. Number one, as my buddy Nick told me, you have to pay a really high cleaning fee and they expect the place spotless. Then why am I paying such a high cleaning fee? What if I leave a dish in the sink? Oh my goodness. Then you're going to leave a bad review for me because that happened. You charged me $100 to clean an apartment and you are going to do that. That does not sit well with me. Second of all, a competitive advantage that Airbnb once had was twofold. One, their fees were cheaper than the hotels. The percentages that they charged, they would charge the host 3% and they would charge you 12%. I think they've raised it to 3.5% for the host, and for the traveler, I think it's something like 14% now. So the price has risen. The same accommodation will cost slightly more because they're trying to fill their coffers because they're a public company. That is absolutely their right to do. The second advantage that Airbnb once had is that there were no local taxes that were paid out. Jurisdictions across the world, this has changed in 98% of them, I'm sure. I have not yet been to a place where I've been looking on Airbnb considering staying where that hasn't been the case. So the unfair competitive advantage that they used to have has disappeared. That's fine. But the point is that the difference between the price at a hotel and the Airbnb has dropped. Second of all, there's often less friction when checking into a hotel. You check in, you go up to your room, everything's set for you. You don't have to deal with finding out where the Wi-Fi code is, although Airbnb does do their best to make that easy for you. You don't have to deal with a host not showing up on time or waiting for you and then complaining because your train got in late or whatever it is that took place. So there's a little bit less friction. So for that reason, unless you're going to be traveling somewhere for a long period of time and get a hefty discount, the advantage that Airbnb, as I've already stated, had versus a hotel has kind of dwindled. So there's that. Then there's the fact that Airbnb's customer service in 2014, it was excellent. You could call, the people would understand you, they would communicate effectively, they knew the rules and the lay of the land with their company, and they had a sincere interest in driving the company forward because they were founding, essentially, employees that wanted the company to succeed so that their stock options would be worth something. Congratulations, they are. But today's Airbnb employees, frankly, are brain dead. There is a lack of intelligence in the customer support section. You call in and honestly, it's like talking to somebody with a below 90 IQ. They just cannot comprehend things. They don't know the rules and regulations. They're not helpful. And you can hear it in their voice. The moment that they pick up the phone, you can tell exactly their level of intelligence. It's rather amazing. The other thing is that they've gone woke. And for example, they are canceling the ability of people to use their service for having the wrong political ideology. Of course, it's Silicon Valley, so that ideology is conservative. They went so far as to cancel the parents of a noted conservative by the name of Lauren Southern, and I made a video about this previously. They canceled her parents based on the association to Lauren Southern. So for all these reasons, I myself have ceased to use Airbnb. I don't want my money going to them. One other reason is because we had a horrendous stay where we left a watermelon as a gift for the host in his small apartment in Thailand, and he complained about that. And then he stole a bag that we had left in the lobby as we were hurriedly exiting, and he took that and did not return it. I had to file a police report at our next destination, and I had to call Airbnb for hours. The people that are on the other end of the line were very unhelpful. In the review that I left him at the last second, I called him an a-hole. And Airbnb not only took down my review, but gave him $500 because he felt butthurt by it. He did not want that review, so they took down my ability to tell other people, do not use this host. He stole our bag, and Airbnb sides with him and gives him $500. How do I know this? Because he texted it to me, bragging about it, and I called Airbnb to complain about this, and they admitted that they did so. So that's not something that most people are going to know normally, but it so happened that he had a big ego and wanted to express that he had defeated me, even though he stole our bag. And Airbnb did nothing to him other than give him $500 when he stole our bag. That should have been reason enough to kick him off the service. Airbnb can run their business however they want. So these are the reasons that I'm no longer using Airbnb, despite the fact that, as I stated, I used to like it. So the question is, should you short Airbnb? And unfortunately, the answer is, even though I'm not buying the shares, I'm not shorting the shares either, because it's very difficult to make money shorting a digital monopoly like Apple, like a Facebook, like a Google, because they have what's called a network effect, where each new user, whether that be a host or a traveler, makes the whole network much more valuable. And although they might be losing some steam in forging ahead, it's virtually impossible for a competitor to spring up because they have such a huge lead. And it's like the gravitational pull of a sun that keeps everybody in orbit. Just as an example, even though I don't want to use the company at all, we have an apartment that's going to be coming on to the market very soon that we need to rent out. And unfortunately, there's no alternative other than to put it on Airbnb. So despite the fact that me and my buddy Nick no longer use the services, the network effect that Airbnb has basically been able to strangle out any possible competitor and is keeping the profits rolling in from them, despite the fact that they're woke, that their customer service sucks. And yes, it's going to cost them a bit of money, but I still would find it hard to short their stock unless it reached stratospheric valuations. So there's the long and the short of it. The main thing to take away from this is network effects. And when you have that and you have a digital monopoly, man, it's hard to displace it. It's possible, but it ain't happening anytime soon to Airbnb. So stay away from shorting Airbnb for now, even though they are losing some customers like me and Nick. Peace.